So let's start adding some of those controls now. The first thing I want to add is a menu. Most applications that we use today have a menu in them, so users are used to seeing one. Now I've gone to my asset library and I'm going to add a menu to my application. I'm going to double click it to add one to the default size, but that's not really a useful size for us, so I'm going to go into my properties inspector and modify the properties there. I want my menu to take up the entire width, so I'm going to change the horizontal alignment to stretch and then set the width to automatic. The height is too tall, so I'm just going to click and drag until I get something a little closer to what I actually need. Now at this point, there's two ways to add menu items. I could go through and make the menu the activated element, find a menu item from the asset panel and add them, but there's a much easier way to do it. I'm going to grab my selection tool and right-click my menu and just say Add Menu Item. Whenever you select a menu and add a menu item, you'll have a top-level menu like you can see here. In the menu item itself, I can also right-click it and add a menu item or add a separator to create submenu items. I could also right-click these and create drag-right menus and so on to whatever level I need, but right now I only need 2 items. So I need to right-click here again and add another menu item. I need 2 menu items in the top. I need to select this. I'm going to double-click to select the menu item that I need and right-click it and add another menu item. Now I've got my top-level menu with 2 items in it, and my first menu item has got 2 inside of it. This is the structure that I want. Now before I start confusing myself, I'm going to rename some of my menu items. This one is going to be Game Control. And I want the header to say Game. I'm going to select my next menu item. This one is going to be the menu item for starting a new game. And I'll set the header the same way. Lastly, the bottom one, I want this to be an exit, so when the user's done with my application, it'll close. And I need to give it an appropriate header. Lastly, I'm going to change this menu item to Help. And give it the appropriate header. Okay. Now that we've created these, we need to actually hook them up with event handlers to do something constructive. We'll start with the easiest one, Exit Game. Now just like you remember when we were adding event handlers to buttons and things like that, menu items work the same way. In my Properties Inspector, I'm going to click the events, and then I'm going to type in a name for my click handler. Now one warning to give here is I can't type a name here that matches one of my existing controls. So if I wanted to type Exit Game, that would actually cause me problems elsewhere. Similarly, if I just typed exit, since that's a command that the .NET Framework recognizes, that would also cause me problems. So I'm going to type Exit Game command. Press return, Visual Studio comes up, and it supplies the signature for my handler for me. Now I'm going to put my cursor here, and I'm going to go ahead and type the command to exit my application. Now since I'm creating an application in the .NET Framework, there's a primary window associated with the application. In this case, it's Window 1. When Window 1 is closed, the application closes. That means that the resources that my application was using are now freed up so the user can use them elsewhere. So I'm going to go ahead and type this, because I'm working with Window 1, press dot, and I want to close. The box that you see on the screen is called IntelliSense, and it's a part of Visual Studio. As I type, it will update itself for the method that it thinks I might be using. When I type CLO, it shows me the list of all of the methods, properties, and events associated with my Window 1, and in this case, close is the first method that starts with those letters. As soon as the method that I want is highlighted, I can just press return, and it'll fill the rest of the string in for me. Now, folks who are familiar with C# will already know this, but whenever you use a method in C#, you've got to supply the parameters. Close doesn't take any parameters, as you can see that as soon as I hit the open parenthesis, it shows me that, well, close doesn't take any parameters. So I just close off the parenthesis, and at the bottom you can see that Visual Studio is also expecting a semicolon. C# always has every command ending with a semicolon, so when I press that, the error goes away, and Visual Studio, at least at first glance, thinks that everything looks okay. I'm going to press Ctrl S to save my document, and switch back to my application. Now watch what happens when I press F5. My application builds, and when I go to Game and exit, the application closes just like I'd expect it to do.